This is a Nice Guys Patreon exclusive.
Welcome to the NHL team season preview video. 32 teams in 32 days rolled along right here on the Ice Guys. It's Ian Cameron, Alex B. Smith, and we are pleased to be joined by, for this Toronto Maple Leafs season preview video, Jay Rosell, our good friend. You've seen him on this channel a handful of times already. And we've brought in and invited Goose, our great pal, Tim York, who is honestly one of the loyal, dedicated viewers from the Ice Guys show for the last few years, and from day one of the show that Jay Rosehill does in the mornings with Nick Alberga, the Leafs morning take show. So we figured reunited, and it feels so good. Let's get Goose together with the people that put together his two favorite hockey shows on a daily basis: the Ice Guys and Leafs Morning Take. Ian, Alex, Jay, and Goose. Goose, we'll start with you. How are you? Good to have you.
I'm good. As I was just saying to you guys, I just came in and out of Ontario. Quick 4-day visit to Mama. Had to do a couple things. Had to come see her, and I think this is going to be a Nice Guys first. Guess who's going to be a grandfather? This guy.
Oh, wow!
Congratulations,
man.
The youngest is expecting in January, so now I got to buy myself a little baby Leaf shirt to put on him. And too bad the dad's a Habs fan, but we'll try and change that.
No, there you go. You got to usurp the dad and say he's got to be a Leaf fan. 100%.
So,
yeah.
Other than that, survived another summer. Like Jay will tell you, we've been hot and dry out here in Calgary. We still are today. Another 25-degree day here in Calgary.
Yeah.
Like we are going to get slammed with some snow here somewhere along the way, Jay, and probably be the day you're. Now, let me ask you, Jay, do you get anywhere near Deerfoot in your work experience, or are you in town?
I use Deerfoot. Yeah, I'm on there sometimes.
No,
it's the Stony Trail.
Does your house, like, do you get called out to Deerfoot?
Sometimes, depends where I'm at. I've been out there before,
Gotcha.
for sure, and it can be mayhem out there. So especially when the snow's flying and the ice is thick, it becomes mayhem. So pay attention out there, folks.
Damn straight.
Jay is a dad, so he puts out fires at home, I'm sure, on a regular basis, but puts out real fires as well in the Calgary area, working as a firefighter, doing a great job, of course. But can you believe, Jay, I think when we first had you on this show, I think you were just starting. The Leaf Morning Take show. Can you believe? I think you're now going into year 3 of that show. It's almost hard to believe.
Yep. Yeah, that's right. It went by quick. First season was kind of a blur, and then we kind of shaped things up last season, and we're primed up for a third here. I think there's going to be big things in store for the Maple Leafs and the show too. And I found out that Goose is one of the OG subscribers and watchers to that show from day one, so much appreciated on that. And Leafs Morning Take, if anyone wants to check out our YouTube or podcast channels, we're doing it Monday to Friday starting on October 7th, and until then, lots of content about twice a week as well. So it's ramping up for sure. It's an exciting time of year.
No question about it. And it's an exciting time of year because the NHL season's right around the corner. And for the Toronto Maple Leafs, the team we will be discussing here in this video, it's a question of, can they get over that hump? Is this the year? And they've been asking it for 57 years and counting. We'll have to wait and see. I'm just glad the odds makers made a fucking adjustment for a change. I'm sick and tired of the Leafs being the favorite or the co-favorite to win the Stanley Cup in the futures market. They finally got dropped a little bit this year, down to 14-1 odds. Of course, the headline news, I guess, in the offseason is brand new head coach and Craig Berube, a very experienced staff. Lane Lambert is on that staff to work on the penalty kill. You've got, obviously, Mark Savard brought in as well, working on this power play. It's a very solid coaching staff they've put together. When you look at this roster, obviously, Mitch Marner, there was so much scuttlebutt. Is this guy going to be traded? People frustrated, particularly with the playoff performance of Mitch, even though he's had phenomenal regular season performances offensively. And we really look at it, he's actually a pretty good two-way player. It's just that the playoff performance in the first round against Boston left a lot to be desired, but no movement. There was a little tete-a-tete with Marner and Berube in the offseason, basically saying, we'll give you a shot. I want to see what you can do here. New coach, new ideas, maybe a new voice as well. Helps Mitch Marner, not so much for the regular season. Mitch doesn't need help in the regular season. He's a good regular season player. It's the playoffs with the majority of this group that needs the improvement. But it looks like we're going to see, Matthews, Marner, in the top line, and potentially maybe Matthew Nyes getting a shot, on that top line as well, which is very interesting. It's someone that's put on some pounds put on some weight here in the offseason. So it's going to be interesting to see if that ends up paying dividends for him and the team moving forward. You've got obviously Max Domi re-signed in the offseason, which was good. William Nylander along for the ride as well. Bobby McMahon, I think, should get more of an opportunity this year. He's someone that really just burst onto the scene last year.
He took off last year. He really did.
100%. Big offensive upside from him. There was definitely discontent from Nick Robertson and thought that, he wanted out and the Leafs were going to give him his wish. Not the case. Because, look, the deals that were out there for Brad Treliving just weren't good enough, to deal Nick Robertson. So he's back. He'll be battling for a spot on the team. And that's the most interesting thing about the Leaf team here in training camp. There's so many spots up for grabs at forward. Pacioretty's battling. Holmberg's battling. Nikita Grabenkin, the young Russian. Steven Lawrence was signed to a PTO. Max Pacioretty, who had a phenomenal first preseason game for the Toronto Maple Leafs. He's definitely probably taken the early lead for a roster spot with his performance against Ottawa Sunday night. So there's a lot of spots up for grabs. When I look at this team, offensively, there's some concern at times in terms of the bottom six. Will you get enough? But I think offensively, there's still a team that's going to be able to put the puck in the net. And to be honest with you, their defensive game, even in the final year under Sheldon Keefe, it did get better, quite honestly, if you look at it. They weren't that same soft team, bad defensive team, irresponsible defensive team last year. There were improvements in the goals against. I think that the blue line is pretty set, guys. Riley, Tanev, Oliver, as Don Cherry says, loss him, toss him. Simone Benoit and Timothy Liljegren look like that's set in stone as your six. You'll have some extras too, like maybe a Cade Weber or a Connor Timmins or a Yoni Hakanpää, who, of course, is probably going to be given the Kawhi Leonard load management treatment this year, where he's probably going to start play maybe, 40, 50 games because they've got to be careful with him coming off that significant injury. So that's what we're looking at on the blue line. And then in net, look, I'm optimistic about the Leafs in net. It's kind of an unknown. Joe Woll's had injuries, but when he's played at a very high level for extended stretches. I think he's capable of being a number one guy, but it's about doing it on a 50, 60 plus game basis every year, being consistent, the every night starter almost, although I think it will be a bit of a platoon situation. It's not like Woll is going to get 70 games. Craig Berube, I doubt he's going to run him into the ground at all, especially coming off the injury. You'll see quite a bit of Stoley, the goalie, brought in from the Florida Panthers, Anthony Stolars, and I think it's going to be more of a 1A, 1B with the goaltending this year for the Toronto Maple Leafs and more of a platoon system. Keep Joe Woll fresh, keep him, less injury risk if you play him a bit less, and have confidence in a guy that had his best season last year of his career, backing up Bobrovsky in Florida, Anthony Stolars. He was terrific. You got to like that the Craig Berube is going to, and you know what I like about Berube in the press conferences? He has given me the buzzwords I want to hear as far as the words that need to be drilled into this team's fucking head and every player. I've heard work ethic. I've heard compete. I've heard physical. I've heard structure. I've heard all these phenomenal buzzwords from Craig throughout the training camp and press conferences. And you just have to hope the Leafs heed those words and turn those words into action on the ice, particularly at playoff time. That will be the interesting thing to monitor. And one last thing I'll say before I pass it to Alex for his thoughts on the Leafs. Last year, for years before last year, the playoff downfall of the Leafs was goaltending and even their defensive play loose. Not very good. I thought against Boston, they actually defended as a team pretty well. And their goaltending, especially when Woll came in those couple of games, was pretty solid. You could say what you want about Samsonov, little up and down. Of course, he's no longer there. He's in Vegas now. But I thought when Woll came in, he was solid. What actually let the Leafs down, especially later in that Boston series, was the offense. It was the power play, especially. Power play was lifeless, and it really, really hurt them. There were so many key moments where they got a power play in games during that series, and they just did not capitalize on those opportunities. Jeremy Swayman's goaltending was a big part of it, too. And unfortunately, not enough offense, believe it or not, for the Leafs. Played a pretty significant role in that 7-game series loss to the Boston Bruins in the first round last year. Alex, Toronto Maple Leafs, here we go again. It seems, how many Leaf previews have we done going into a new season? We're saying, can you win a couple of rounds? Can you get to a conference final? I've been saying this shit for a decade now, it feels like, on this show. What are your thoughts on the Leafs, Alex?
Yeah, this is the Groundhog Day franchise for sure. I mean, it just seems like it's the same thing year after year after year. And, we love the top four. We know Austin Matthews is one of the best hockey players in the world. But, how realistic is him to come back after a 69 goal season and do that again? You got, players you're going to have to replace, on the front end, like a Tyler Bertuzzi, 21 goals, 43 points. You got to replace production. And then also now having a changing in style, the changing in coaching staff. Craig Berube is not going to take any shit from anybody, including Toronto media. So it's going to be real interesting to see how things roll if it's not everything's not roses and wins in the first couple of weeks. But just seeing how this team lays out on paper, they look like another great regular season team that we just wonder when they can put it together in the playoffs. I like the goaltending tandem of Wall and Stolarz. Stolarz has been one of the better backups in the league, I think, in the last couple of years. And now finally earning a ring with Florida, but he even played well in his time in Anaheim.
Yep.
I think he can be the perfect guy to where he can come in the middle of January when this team's playing 500 hockey and steal you a couple games and get that momentum back on track and in the right times. I think that's where his strength really lies, where Wall can be the guy that, you need a big win, you need a big save against a top tier team. You can rely on him and trust him more than most of the goalies we've seen in a Leafs uniform over the last decade. So that's solid. You've got a much improved defense. Like I said, Oliver Ekman-Larsson's going to give you at least some puck movement. Chris Tanev is going to be absolute shutdown monster, blocking shots, especially on the penalty kill. Improving the penalty kill is always a big plus, especially in the Eastern Conference, especially when you talk about Toronto having the battle with the Montreals and the Bostons and the Tampas of the world, where things can get a little rough and physical. Even Florida, I'm sure there's going to be some animosity there based on the last couple of years of how they played one another. So you find a way to kill penalties, but now, like you said, keeping the offense consistent, which it seems like I said in regular season shouldn't be an issue. There's enough guys on a given night to pluck one out of the lineup, and they give you a couple of goals, and you find ways to win. But can you translate that into scoring goals consistently in April and possibly May or June? That's what remains to be seen. So it's everything looks good for the regular season, like it has for the last 10, 15 years. Just wonder about what happens after the 82 games.
Exactly right. You know what I like about what Berube might be doing with the D pairs, and I like this. He's got a nice little blend going. He's got a good puck-moving defenseman, move the puck up the ice, paired with a guy that's a stay-at-home, shut-down, physical, tough prick. He's got that in each pairing right now. He's got Riley with Tanev. You got a puck mover, a guy that can play on the power play like Riley, and then there's Tanev with the stay-at-home, shut-down, block a ton of shots, physical, tough prick. OEL with Jake McCabe, same thing. OEL puck mover, can play on the power play. Jake McCabe, stay-at-home, shut-down, physical, hits you right through the boards, tough prick. And same thing with the third pair when we're talking about Simone Benoit with Timothy Liljegren. Kind of that same thing. Liljegren more the skater, Simone Benoit the masher, defensively, fight, hit, do all that stuff. I like that. I like that, we're not putting two puck movers on the same pairing or two shutdown defensive physical defensemen on the same pairing. I like that he's got 1 and 1 of each type of defenseman on each of his pairings. I think that's a nice balance that I hope the Leafs go with here in the regular season. Rosie, let's go to you. What do you think for these Leafs?
Yeah, when I look at this year, it's the problems that they have had in the past. They're hard to quantify. They're hard to lock down. I mean, people who aren't really in the know as much as you mentioned think that this team is poor defensively and can't rely on their goaltender. And when you get down to it and you look at where they come up short, I mean, they're not scoring the goals that they need to score in the playoffs. They're not coming up with those power play numbers that they need. I mean, I think it was a 4.8% they're running their power play at in the playoffs last year. There's certain numbers that put it into perspective. Like the Oilers could have gone 0 for 250 to get to the percentage that the Maple Leafs were at. And they're supposed to be gifted with this high octane, offensively minded, high talent forward group. So it's a bit of an anomaly. But to me, the problems are mental. The problems are not being able to have the identity to lean back on when things get tough. And I keep going back to, what was it, 2015, 16, that type of era when they hired Mike Babcock. I think that they knew this group of players needed a coach that was a little bit stern, that demanded accountability from every single player. And I think their heart was in the right place with that hiring. But unfortunately, he turned out to be a guy that, had so many different layers to him that were obviously very negative. It kind of blew up in their face. And what do you do after that? Oh my goodness, you scramble and you do the opposite. And you go to a player's coach who's going to stroke and pet the guys a little bit, who's going to put them in the driver's seat a little bit, who's going to wait to see how things happen and let the game ebb and flow and be that player's coach. And to me, I think they had it right the first time. Unfortunately, that was about 9 years ago, and things changed slow, especially in that market. It's been years of painfulness because I think the formula is wrong. Enter Craig Berube. I agree with you. Everything he's been saying to start this season is, I think, what this group needs. It's the accountability factor. It's having an identity. It's playing with intensity. It's playing responsible hockey. You're not cutting corners. You're not blowing zones. You're not cheating on any side of the puck. You're going to give your best effort every time. Everyone's accountable. Everyone needs to be on the same page. And then when the going gets tough, you have created that identity. You've created that structure around you that you can lean back on when things get tough. You know who you are. And I think that they've been lacking that in the past. They look around at each other and go, "Oh, what do we do now? Like, things are getting tough. Oh my God, it's going to happen again." And they grip their sticks, and then they revert to making individual efforts and trying to win the game all in one play, which isn't how it's done in the NHL. So, with Woll, I have some picks to put some money on him and see how things goes. Matthew Nyes, I think, is going to have a big pump up season. I think we'll see what happens on the back end, whether Hakanpää can produce and contribute. But again, like you mentioned, they've got a little bit of everything back there. I think in a few months' time, people might be looking at the Leafs back end and saying, "Wow, they've got a pretty solid mix back there."
If Nyes is ready to take that jump as a dominant power forward, top line left winger this year with Matthews and Marner, holy shit, look out with that potential top line. That's a hell of a top line. If Nyes, that's the ceiling for Nyes. Nyes can be 30, 40 goal guy, 100% in this league, especially playing with Matthews and Marner. Can he be able to take off given that opportunity this year? That's going to be the big question. It's funny. The Leafs last year in the playoffs, Goose, it's just when you think you have all the answers, the questions change. And that's what it felt like with the playoffs last year. The answers were fix your defense, fix your goaltending. You're going to start winning in the playoffs. And then last year, they actually defend better. The goaltending wasn't that bad. And then it's the offense that disappears. And the power play goes completely fucking ice fucking cold in the first round against the Boston Bruins. So if it's not one thing, it's another. This is the team. You bleed blue and white, York, Timmy, Goose, for as long as you have. What do you think here? Well, how optimistic are you heading into this new season?
I'm, as always, because it's still September, I'm still planning the parade, starting at Carlton's, going right down Yonge to Front Street. That's the realistic view every September, and then we'll go from there. This year, I as much as I would love to say I'm looking for a cup this year, it's not going to happen. This is the year that they're going to have to learn how to play Berube style. They're going to have to learn how to be hard on the puck. Like Jay said, they got to be hard on the pucks everywhere.
And it's a big transition from this Keefe system, by the way.
Exactly. And then come the playoffs, they've got to learn how to play with no space. They still cannot play with a man on them. Regular season, they get 5 feet of space. They can do what they please. Come the playoffs, those guys are on them, and they don't know what to do. That seems to be a real... They get lost. There's no other way to explain it. They get lost.
Good point.
I'm ever hopeful for this year. I've got them actually less point total than last year. I expect them to finish third again in the division. And then we'll see what happens in the playoffs. It'd be nice to see 2 rounds this year. It really would. But new coach, right? New things going on. Let's see where we end up and, temper the expectations. But as always, every night, I expect a Leaf win. That's just the way it is.
That's absolutely. Just be optimistic and fingers crossed and hope for the best. Seems to be.
Yeah, just don't bet a lot of money on them.
Well, you can bet them in spots. There's going to be spots.
Always spots.
Don't bet the Leafs, and Jay, you'll know this very well. That I'm 100% right on this one. You don't bet the Leafs on a Monday night in a sleepy environment at Scotiabank Arena when you're playing the Anaheim Ducks, because the Ducks are going to walk in there and win 3-2 or some shit. and win as a big plus 270 underdog or something. That's the Leafs the last several years. Those weeknight sleepy ass home games. It's like a church in there. It's so quiet. And there's the Ducks, or a lesser light, rolling into TO, coming out of there with 2 points. How many times have we seen that shit, Jay, over the years?
Yeah, they cleaned it up last year a little bit, but my goodness, there's a lot of sleeper games like that where they get the doors blown off of them. And I think that comes with maturity. I think that comes with growing pains. And again, with the system they let these guys run with and kind of have the freedom to play however they wanted, it seemed like at times, I think came back to bite them more often than not. Again, more reasons to think that there could be change in Toronto, think that mental block that they've had in the past, they could overcome it now. They could break through and actually, play the way that this group needs to play. As much talent and whatnot as they have, I think it needs to be more disciplined. And I think there needs to be more accountability from top to bottom to play a system and style. Again, that when you said, they don't have room out there, guys are clamping down, you're playing high-end hockey teams with everything on the line. It's not going to be a 7-6 win. It's not going to be highlight reel dipsy doodle stuff that's going to get the job done. It's going to be, relying on each other, falling back on your systems, knowing who you are, having a plethora of experience behind you, and just having a track record of consistency of doing things the right way. And I think Chief Berube is going to demand that. So I'm high on them this year. I think that the problems they have had are understood, and I think that this is a really good step to rectify them. And with that group of players, I don't think the whole world needs to move for them to take that next step. I think it could be a simple tweak and a simple mindset adjustment that gets it done.
I can't wait for that first moment, and it's going to happen because we've seen it, especially with Mitch. I'm not saying William Nylander and some others don't play this way, but with Mitch in particular, I can't wait for that first little dipsy-do dangle in the neutral zone that doesn't work out, turns the fucking puck over, and then 2 seconds later, you're fishing it out of the back of your net because they score on you. I can't wait for that first moment where then Berube probably puts him in timeout for a couple of shifts. It's going to happen at some point. You know it. Yeah.
We will see. We will see. Again, accountability, and I think there's going to be guys that have to earn the trust and earn their minutes. And albeit there's a lot of all-star players on that roster, I think there's going to be a level of understanding that I don't know if it's going to have to. It'll depend how they take to it. Are they going to take to it themselves naturally and understand that what the assignment is, or are they going to have to, have, I don't want to say their cage rattled a little bit, but get some hints from the bench boss on how things are going to be expected to be done around here. And I'm hoping that they understand within that room. It's hard to say with, their interviews and what they tell. They don't show their hand. It's tough to get an idea of where their minds are at as individuals and as a group, but you'd like to think that they see the writing on the wall here with Craig Berube and they understand some changes are going to need to be made.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jay, you mentioned a bunch of all-stars on this team. Now, of course, we don't have an all-star game this year. We've got the Four Nations tournament, and there's going to be Leafs on display, obviously, in the tournament involving U.S., Canada, Sweden, and Finland. So Nylander and Matthews will be obviously the two of the most talked about players throughout that week and a half. But looking at the schedule, I think it's really interesting. The beginning of the season, you got 13 of the first 21 games at home. But then in the month of February and going into March, in between that break, you've got a 4-game trip out west. And then you've got, like you said, a majority of those players that are going to be playing in the Four Nations tournament. Then they come back for a home game on the 22nd against Carolina, and then go back on the road for 4 more games. Actually, we'll end up having 7 of the next 8 out of that stretch being on the road.
Wow.
So that's a spot in the schedule where I think, like I said, if you're looking at maybe time to try to back the Leafs at some point, because the numbers are always going to be inflated. They're always kind of a favorite team amongst the betting circles and the betting numbers. But that might be the time where they could take a little bit of a dip and you could buy low on Toronto. Anywhere around the month of February, they go through a little bit of struggles coming out of that break a little bit, and you might be able to get some good value on some numbers for them if you like them to rally and win the East. Bet on them to win the Cup. You're going to get a better number then than you will at any point in this calendar year of 2024.
Yeah, I agree.
Good find with the schedule. No doubt about that. As far as props, I already mentioned him. I hope and think he's going to get the first shot with Matthews and Marner on the top line, and that's Matthew Nyes, who I think is poised for a really big breakout season. This is going to be his second full year now with the Leafs. And if he gets that opportunity, like FanDuel's got him at -160 to score 20 goals, and he scored 15 last year. And if he's going to play on the top line with Matthews and Marner, and he's going to get power play time, and if he avoids injury, he's going to get 20 goals. And so I don't mind laying -160 on that at all. And then if you want to take a shot for 30 goals, which I did at FanDuel, 30 plus goals from Nyes this year, it's almost 10 to 1. Like it's like plus 9.
Oh, that's great.
It's a big price. And again, we're talking about A, if he can stay healthy, B, if he's going to play on that top line with Matthews and Marner, which I think he probably will, at least to start. And unless he goes into the tank and struggles with them and is at least consistent, he's going to stay on that top line for a long time. And so to get plus 950, on him to get 30 goals, I think it's worth a shot. You can only put a couple bucks on it, and it'll turn into a nice profit for you if he gets 30 goals. So that's the player that stuck out to me, Jay, with the player props for the season long for the Leafs. Matthew Nyes, if he plays on that top line, to get 20 goals at FanDuel is -160. To get 30 goals at FanDuel, again, plus 950. That's a hell of a price, especially if he's going to be on that top line with the Matthews and Marner.
Yeah, I agree. I covered the base a little bit with, there's over and under, but I found them at 50 plus points for plus 125.
That's good too.
On Bet365.
Yes.
And I just, whether it comes in the form of setting plays up or digging it out of the corner and getting it to the front, or being the guy in the front and banging him in too, I think he's going to be a point machine. And I've been high on this kid since he came out of college. I've really liked the way he stepped into the league. I've liked the way he's adapted to the league, and I think he's ready to take a step and really pull out as one of the front runners. And you could say that about a few different guys, but I don't think many of them are going to have the opportunity that Matthew Nyes is going to get out of the gate. And again, you got to just assume he's going to be healthy. He's going to get that opportunity. He's going to run with it with his pedigree, and I think he's a guy that you could make some money on right now with his value being kind of up in the air. They realize he's an up and comer, but I'm not sure if they fully realize the opportunity of playing with those players is going to provide for him.
Yeah, I co-sign what Rosie's saying there with Nyes. 50 points or more, plus money. FanDuel, DraftKings, plus 110, plus 125. That's what we're looking at with that prop. I think that one makes a lot of sense as well. Like I say, if he's going to, we think he's skilled, we think he's talented, we think he's going to be a good player in this league, and they're going to set him up for success if he's playing with Matthews and Marner, and he's going to get power play minutes. The only concern is, you could say this about every player, though, is the injury. You just hope he avoids serious injury. And if he does avoid serious injury, I think he's hitting 20 goals minimum, and I think he's got a good shot for that 50-point plateau. No question about that. What if the Leafs, too, get offensively? What if Nick Robertson takes to the new coaching style? What if Max Pacioretty stays healthy and shows you more of what he did in the first preseason game? And look, it's one preseason game. We can't overreact. We got to be calm. But Max Pacioretty has said to everyone that will listen throughout camp here, I'm in the best shape I've felt like in years. And I know he's had a bunch of injuries, but he says he feels great, as good as he's felt in years. A better chance to avoid those injuries, hopefully this year, which is always the thing with Pacioretty. It's avoiding those injuries. But what if he avoids those injuries and he still has that offensive flair for this team? All of a sudden, you're not, crying out for goals up and down your lineup nearly as much if those two things happen. Robertson's key, Pacioretty's key. And I think he's going to make the team, if he can stay healthy and produce. And then if Nyes has a huge year with Matthews and Marner, what if McMahon chips in like he did last year? Max Domi is consistent there playing with Willie on the second line. All of a sudden, you're not starving for goals if those things can happen for you. To go with the attention to detail defensively, bringing in a Tanev. Tanev, this is the perfect fit for they needed a Chris Tanev in the worst way. This guy eats pucks. That's what he does. He'll put his face in front of a shot. We've seen him do it before. He'll just do anything to keep the puck out of the net, and it's just the perfect fit for this Leafs team. So I'm optimistic because I do think they're going to try to play with structure, and I do think Berube will demand accountability and structure. Like I said, the first time a Leaf player turns it over in the neutral zone and they score on it, Berube will not put up with that shit. I can guarantee you that. It's just not going to happen. So I'm fascinated to see when those instances occur this year, no doubt. All right, we'll go around the horn for final thoughts before we wrap it up. Alex, we'll start with you. Final thoughts on the Leafs.
Yeah, it's just a lot of wait and see with this team. Obviously, like I said, we expect them to do well in the regular season, but like I said, and having that, the path is laid out for them to have a good year, especially like I said, 13 of the first 21 games at home. Get wins at home, play with some energy at home, maybe get some energy from the fans at home. That would be nice. I'd love to be able to mark the Maple Leafs as
Too many
2.
Bay Street bootlickers, unfortunately, go to those games. That's the problem.
I'd love to be able to bump them up from a 1 to 2 in my home ice rankings at some point. I haven't been able to do that in about several years. But if they can get some goals, play the right way, like I said, play accountable hockey, Craig Berube style hockey, I think the fans will be energized, and this will be a fun season. Just a matter, like I said, what happens after that 82. That's the most important thing, and that remains to be seen.
Year after year, it's the 82 is great. Making the playoffs is great. They're going to be judged on April and beyond, just as they have the last several years. Jay, final thoughts?
Yeah, agreed. I'm bullish on the Leafs this year. I think that, they've had a lot of pieces that look good and shiny. They're still there. They've relied too heavily on them. I think they're a little bit deeper now up front as well as on the back end. I think that there's tons of opportunity and potential for the goaltenders to kind of hit that role and do very well at, especially Joseph Woll. I think he's very capable physically and mentally, and I think he just needs an opportunity to find his groove, stay healthy, and prove that. And the biggest thing for me is the team identity. I think is going to take a drastic turn this year, and it was well needed. And I think that could be just the thing to get this team over the hump and actually start finding some success.
We shall see. It's going to be fascinating to watch. There's no question about that. And by the way, I know Jay Rosehill brought up the Mike Babcock era. Can we stop comparing Mike Babcock finally to John Tortorella? There's not even a hint of the similarity between those two guys. Mike Babcock's just a bad guy with the players. It's simple. It's proven with what he put them through. John Tortorella, yeah, he's demanding. He'll crack the whip, but he actually cares. He cares about players. He wants the best for them. And that's that argument that people have. People still think Babcock and Tortorella are cut from the same cloth. That's just a bunch of nonsense. After what I saw yesterday, what a gesture by Torts, bringing in Johnny Gaudreau's father to run practice and coach practice. That is showing humanity. That's showing incredible compassion and empathy, and trying to help a grieving father in a time, get him in a comfort zone again, back by the rink, coaching, which is something he loves to do. Beautiful sentiment by John Tortorella and the Philadelphia Flyers. So I don't want to hear him and Babcock in the same sentence ever again. I'm done with that. Goose, your final thoughts on the Leafs.
Well, let's run it through here. Defense is on the wrong side of 30, so the forwards will not be able to fly the zone. They are going to have to come back. They are going to have to play tighter defense. That's just the way it's going to be.
All 3 zones. That's what I want to see, and I know Berube wants to see that, and he'll demand it. Yep.
And if we think that Tanev is kind of one of the missing pieces, I see a 3-year max competition window with him. So they've got 3 years, regardless of the superstars, regardless of Matthews, Marner, whatever we do with Marner and everybody else. You got 3 years with Tanev, that's it. And then his body's probably going to break down on him. They're still over the cap. They are 1.07 over the cap without having signed Pacioretty and or Lawrence. So they're going to have to do some trading. They're going to have to ditch some guys somewhere along the way. I'm still not sure about Pacioretty. I've seen a little bit. I like it because he hasn't got 2 years of heavy hockey on his body. So he's got some energy. He's got some speed. So, all right, we'll see what goes on there. I expect to see better seasons out of Robertson, McMahon, Nyes, Nylander, and Marner are both going to hit 100-plus points this year. That one I'm sure of. Real quick on a couple
year
bets.
For Mitch, and you know what that means. Usually you'll go
exactly. He's going to score the shit out of it.
Yep.
Yeah. So Nylander over 92.5 minus 110. Marner over 95.5 minus 110. Toronto team total under 105 is minus 105. I've got that. I've got Vegas team total under 98.5. There's an off to the side, but it's plus 100. I think Vegas is going to have a bad year this year. And then a special one, and I hate to do this one. I had these already in before the Gaudreau tragedy. But to finish last in the regular season, I got Calgary at plus 1,400, and I got Columbus at plus 350.
Yep.
So I'm thinking one of the two, right? So other than that, on a whole, I do like the moves. I'm prepared to watch Marner walk at the end of the year because you can't sign him. Because if not, we're gonna be in the same boat we've been in for the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Like, you have to let him go. You have no choice. Because you're going to have to pay Nyes. You're going to have to pay Robertson if he has a breakout season. There's a couple other RFAs that they're going to have to pay. Yeah. So something's got to give. So unfortunately, I think Mitch is gone. If he plays the season, they would do something with him. You can't pay him because he's going to want 12, 13, right? Like you can't do it.
Kyle
So,
Dubas capitulated to everybody, and because of that,
right.
this is where you're at right now. Yep.
So
And
that's my look on that.
Now here's one thing. Could we possibly see now? Obviously, the cap, his price is going to be a big of a hit, and that'll take some moving around. But could we see a blockbuster midseason trade? Could Marner be moved for another top 6 forward in the middle of the season?
That's entirely possible, right? Now he does have the no move, no trade, right? All of that up the wazoo. But if you can put him into, like, I don't know, Rangers, like, is it,
the no trade.
yeah, but you can't send them to. So real quick, because you and Alex, or you and Ian both know, Jay, I advocated 2 years ago when Tree Living came in, dumping all three of them. I would have traded Matthew, Marners, and Nylander out the door. I would have got back players, picks, prospects. I would have reset the entire salary cap. We wouldn't be in this position. Fans would be screaming, but we would be better off as a team. So you're not going to be able to ship them to Atlanta or to Anaheim or San Jose, or take your pick on the bottom dwellers for this year. It's going to have to be a top 6. But everybody knows we're behind the 8 ball anyway, so you're not going to get. You might get a decent package, but you're probably not going to get what he's fully worth. But that might be the best option if you can get him out the door. But he might say, "Screw you! I'm going to wait till the end of the season, and I'm going to take my chances." So he's holding all the cards. That's the worst part in this entire situation. So
that no trade clause really is kind of the straw that's, I think, holding the Campbell's back together right now. It's even if you can get someone that's willing to take him on, that thinks he's a piece that they could use, that's willing to get a contract done, that's going to be agreeable to his terms without wanting to go seek free agency. I mean, it would have to be such a perfect storm of everything coming to alignment. I just don't see it happening. They're hard enough to make deals as they are in the first place, and to find the proper suitor, to get a package together, to have them put a deal together, and to have Mitch A-OK and sign on the dotted line when he could just as easily roll into free agency and take his pick. I just don't think that you're going to put a package together that's going to get the job done. I just don't see it. Too many stars have to align. So we'll see what he does. He's going to have his typical on fire regular season. He's going to put up the big points. He's going to look fancy, and the fans that aren't really in depth with what's going on are going to be screaming, "Why don't we sign this guy? Look how great he is." But at the end of the day, I just don't think you can commit to doing more of the same. And it just so happens that he's the guy that's on the chopping block. And if you can open up his contract, and B, that Jonathan Tavares, $11 million a year, is coming off the books after this year too. All of a sudden, you're looking at the 2025 free agents list, and it's looking pretty juicy. So perhaps, replacing those guys wouldn't be as big of a chore as some people might think.
No.
It's all going to be interesting to see it all unfold. The season on the ice, and then the movement and the
season within the season
decisions off the ice are going to be fascinating for this group as well. Great stuff. As the former Leaf goal song that you would often hear for home games, we've made Goose's dreams come true. We've made them come true. He's hanging with the people that bring him his 2 favorite hockey programs every single day, online, on the web, on the interwebs. Ian Cameron and Alex B. Smith with the Ice Guys, Jay Rosehill with Leafs Morning Take. It's a dream come true day for you, right, Goose?
It is. I've been looking forward to this day ever since you guys got a hold of me. I have my notes. I got all sorts of stuff. Oh yeah, I was ready for this one.
Awesome. No, it was a lot of fun. Great to be able to have you join your 3 favorite hockey show personalities on YouTube right here, Ian, Alex, and Jay. Awesome stuff. Jay, plug your stuff one more time, because you're doing Leafs Morning Take, and I know you've done the Hockey Fights podcast. You said that might be in limbo, but tell us about everything you're doing this season.
Yeah, regardless of what happens, I'm going to be doing some stuff with hockeyfights.com under the name Department of Discipline. We've done a year under our belt. We'll see where that leads today. We're still going over that, but Leafs Morning Take with myself and Nick Alberga. It's at 11 a.m. Eastern every single weekday. We're doing 2 shows a week right now, still ramping up for the season, and I think it's October 7th. We're going to go live with 5 shows a week, Monday to Friday, and we've added a post-game show after dark as well. For
Zach Phillips,
immediate-
of course,
That's
our
right,
buddy Zach Phillips.
Yep.
So,
Yeah,
Our
right.
buddy
Oh,
Zach.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
we're, we're growing, we're covering the gambit, and yeah, we're on top of things. We love bringing the info and breaking it down. There's never a dull moment in Leafs Nation, as everyone who is part of it knows too well.
Yep. And Alex knows Zach Phillips well too. Yeah, another big
Yeah.
Leaf fan, and he's very brutally honest too. I love that about Zach.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
he's not going to sugarcoat things. If it's bad, Zach will tell you exactly
bet.
how it is with that team. Great stuff. Thanks to Jay Rosehill, to Goose, of course, Alex, my right-hand man always. This has been your Toronto Maple Leafs season preview video as 32 teams in 32 days rolls along right here on the Ice Guys.